Prologue. The Quiet Beneath the Howl. Duskinvale was the kind of town you'd miss if you blinked too fast on a road trip. Nestled between misty hills and whispering woods, it looked like something out of a forgotten postcard. Red-bricked houses, white picket fences, and a single main road that led from the dusty gas station to the quaint town square. Life moved slowly here, peacefully, predictably. But Duskinvale had secrets. Beneath its charm ran something older, darker, and far more primal than anyone dared to admit. While the townsfolk went about their lives, baking pies, running hardware stores, gossiping over garden fences, beasts and blood drinkers walked beside them. Werewolves and vampires lived among the humans, hidden in plain sight, bound by an ancient pact that kept the peace, and the truth buried. And for years the balance was held by the Duskwatch sentinels. The werewolves ruled the forests, bound by blood and loyalty. The vampires fed discreetly, hidden beneath the town's underbelly, adhering to the rules carved into stone centuries ago. As long as no human blood was spilled publicly, and no human discovered too much, peace would endure. Sheriff John Harper, tall, gruff, and deeply respected, with chestnut hair and hazel eyes, wore his badge like armor. A man of justice and order, he had stumbled upon the truth decades ago during an investigation that nearly cost him his life. That same investigation brought him the love of his life, Maya. Instead of sounding alarms, he made a vow: protect the town, protect the people, and protect the secret that kept everyone safe. Only one person ever suspected his world was more complicated than a small-town sheriff's duties: his daughter, Evelyn. In the sleepy town of Duskinvale, where the trees whispered age-old secrets and the winds carried the scent of pine and forgotten magic, 17-year-old Evelyn Harper was a quiet storm. She moved through the hallways of Duskinvale High with grace and mystery, her chestnut hair cascading down her back like silk, her hazel eyes deep enough to drown in. Everyone noticed her: the football captain, Neo, the art kids, even the teachers whispered about her potential. But Evelyn never let the attention sink in. She kept her head low, her nose in her books, and her heart guarded like a locked diary. She lived with her father, Sheriff John Harper, in a warm 4-bedroom home that stood on the edge of town, hugged by birch trees and kissed by golden morning sun. It was a house filled with memories, especially of her mother, Maya Harper, who had once made it a sanctuary. Every photo frame, every lavender-scented curtain, was a trace of the woman Evelyn barely remembered, except for the warm scent she left behind and the aching silence that followed her disappearance. They said it was an accident. Her father never said more. Every time she asked, his strong jaw would tighten and he'd change the subject. Evelyn learned not to pry. Somewhere deep inside she sensed the truth was too heavy for words. Evelyn Harper had inherited her father's quiet intensity, his sharp instincts, and his stubborn streak. She knew something always lurked beyond the edge of the trees, even if she couldn't quite name it. But for the most part, she lived like every other teen in Duskinvale, going to school, hanging out with Cleo, sneaking sodas from the old corner store. Cleo Flynn, her best friend, was everything Evelyn wasn't: outgoing, dazzling, and unapologetically bold. With sun-kissed blonde curls, green eyes that sparkled like mischief, and a laugh that could wake the dead, Cleo was the fire to Evelyn's calm. They'd been inseparable since childhood, raised in parallel lives. Cleo was the daughter of Mayor Augustus Flynn, wealthy, ambitious, always impeccably dressed, with a voice that could command a room and secrets that would silence one. Mayor Flynn was one of the few humans who knew the truth of Duskinvale. His public persona was one of leadership and charity, but behind closed doors he walked a narrow line with the creatures of the night. He kept the balance, not out of fear, but out of opportunity. Power in Duskinvale was layered, and he knew exactly where to place his hands. Cleo, however, was blissfully unaware of her father's dealings. She believed in homework, crushes, and pool parties, not claws and fangs. She had grown up in a world of curated perfection, never once sensing the ancient eyes watching from the shadows. But peace, like all things, is fragile, and it had been broken 17 years ago, It began with a woman, Veronica Flynn, Cleo's mother. She vanished without a trace, leaving behind a grieving husband and a daughter too young to understand. Whispers of her fate drifted through the town like smoke, but no one dared speak too loudly. Then came another disappearance, a high schooler named Robin. Then Evelyn's father too changed, not physically but emotionally, haunted, more cautious, watching the woods like they whispered his name. The treaty, carved into stone and bound by blood, had begun to crack. Something ancient had awakened in Duskinvale, something hungry. In the stillness of night, the barrier between the ordinary and the supernatural thinned. The wind carried growls where there should have been silence. Shadows shifted with intent. And Evelyn Harper, sharp-eyed, stubborn-hearted Evelyn, was about to discover she was more than just the sheriff's daughter. She was the spark destined to change everything. Welcome back to my channel. This is an audiobook for Chosen by the Alpha. A tale of love, broken laws, dynasties, and werewolf shifters, set in a world where light and darkness collide. Written and narrated by Cauliflower Campbell. If you're new here, my channel creates stories for adults and teenagers with lessons and experiences to learn from. We post mainly on Saturdays. Our videos are in different genres and also in different forms. There are full-length audiobooks and short-chaptered audiobooks. Go to my channel page, subscribe, and check out the playlists for more fantasy, romance, thriller, mystery, suspense, and adventure. Prepare yourself for a breathtaking adventure filled with werewolves, forbidden magic, and a love that defies destiny. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Let the story continue. Chapter 1: Eternal Bonds. It was a good Monday morning. Evelyn Harper stirred beneath soft, floral-patterned sheets as her alarm clock blared to life, cutting through the tranquil haze of early dawn. The scent of sizzling bacon and strong black coffee drifted up from the kitchen, warm and grounding, a familiar comfort. Her room, beautiful and personal, was decorated in shades of lavender and blush, with soft curtains that fluttered in the morning breeze, and shelves lined with books, trophies, and trinkets that told the story of who she was. Stretching lazily, Evelyn blinked the sleep from her hazel eyes and sat up slowly. The sunlight filtering through her window painted golden shapes on the floor. For a fleeting moment, she let the peace wash over her before rising to start the day. She padded across the room to the bathroom, brushing her teeth with practiced rhythm and stepping into a hot shower that fogged the mirrors and cleared the last remnants of sleep from her mind. Afterwards, she stood in front of her closet, considering her choices. School uniforms weren't exciting, but she managed to infuse her style into them. She chose a navy skirt, a crisp white blouse, and topped it with her dusky pink cardigan. Downstairs, the kitchen smelled like home. Sheriff John Harper stood by the stove, rugged and tall, his dark uniform shirt unbuttoned at the collar. The man had a presence that could command a room, but around Evelyn, he softened. This morning, like every morning, he hummed a Johnny Cash tune as he flipped pancakes with a practiced hand. "Morning, kid," he said without turning. "Morning, Dad." Evelyn replied. They ate quietly, the only sounds the sizzle of bacon, the scrape of forks, and the occasional creak of floorboards settling. The silence wasn't awkward, it was theirs. A ritual forged by loss and love, shaped by years of learning how to exist with words unsaid. After breakfast, John pulled on his uniform jacket, clipped on his badge, and grabbed his hat from the counter. Before leaving, he paused to brush a strand of hair from Evelyn's forehead and kissed her just above the brow. "Be good, kid," he said with a crooked smile. Evelyn grinned. "Aren't I always?" Moments later, a sleek black car rolled into the driveway with a smooth purr. Cleo Flynn, flashing sunglasses and confidence, hopped out, her blonde curls bouncing as she sauntered to the front steps. "Get in, loser, we're skipping algebra," she called with a wink, throwing open the car door. "You wish," Evelyn replied, adjusting her bag as she stepped outside. The two girls couldn't have been more different. Cleo was bold, radiant, and full of sharp wit. Evelyn was introspective, grounded, and quietly captivating. But their friendship worked like a well-tuned melody. They had been best friends since the age of 5, bonded by a birthday party in the Flynn backyard and the warmth of a woman named Veronica. Veronica Flynn, Cleo's mother, had become a second mother to Evelyn. Her presence had filled a void Evelyn hadn't even known existed, bathing them in bubble-filled tubs, braiding their hair into twin pigtails, and calling them her princesses. "You're both beautiful in your own ways," she'd say with that velvet voice. Two sides of the same lucky coin. Even now the memory of her touch lingered. Veronica never let Evelyn feel the weight of her mother's absence. She had filled their childhoods with music and light, until the light disappeared. Duskinvale High was alive with the hum of teenage drama. Evelyn and Cleo moved through the hallways like stars in different constellations, always close, always aligned. Cleo's obsessions rotated weekly. This week, Neo, the brooding football captain with an effortless smirk, and Jeremy, the bass guitarist who wouldn't recognize her even if she wore a name tag. "Neo looked at me today," Cleo whispered in biology, nudging Evelyn. "He was asking for a pencil," Evelyn replied dryly, not even looking up from her notes. "Details," Cleo huffed, crossing her arms. "Love is in the air." Evelyn chuckled, the corners of her mouth twitching, but her smile faded as her thoughts wandered, as they often did, to her mother. The ache was dull most days, but sometimes, like now, it flared. Cleo noticed. She always did. She leaned closer, her voice low and bright. "Soda after class? My treat." The answer was always yes. They made their way to Jack's, the old corner market with dusty aisles and flickering lights. 2 cherry sodas clinked from the fridge, and they plopped down on the curb outside, their feet stretched into the gutter as they sipped and watched the cars roll past. "Tell me again why you won't dye your hair with me," Cleo asked, twirling a golden curl around her finger. Evelyn smiled. "Because I'm the voice of reason in this friendship." "You're the voice of boring," Cleo shot back playfully. They laughed together, their voices weaving into the soundtrack of a town that seemed, on the surface, peaceful. But all homes have cracks. And Duskinvales were beginning to show. Beneath the sidewalks and suburban normalcy, ancient shadows stretched. Evelyn didn't know it yet, but her father's silence was more than caution. It was protection. His secrets were not just old wounds, they were maps to the truth she had yet to uncover. In the woods, something stirred. The peace forged in secrecy was fraying at the edges, and Evelyn Harper, with her mother's intuition and her father's stubborn fire, stood unknowingly at the center of it all. Soon the veil between worlds would tear, and her life would never be the same. Chapter 2. The Way He Caught the Ball. Duskinvale High buzzed with late autumn energy. The sky overhead was a uniform sheet of pale gray, casting a cool, soft light over the school grounds. Trees that flanked the football field stood half-naked, their leaves scattered in rusty orange and brittle brown piles across the bleachers and pathways. A chilly breeze wove its way through the campus, carrying with it the scent of dried leaves, damp earth, and the faint metallic tang of oncoming rain. After gym class, students lingered around the football field, reluctant to return indoors just yet. Laughter echoed across the open space as groups clustered in small knots, some sitting on the grass, others jogging laps or tossing around balls. Sneakers scuffed against pavement, voices rose and fell with adolescent exuberance, the kind of moment that felt suspended in time, filled with youth and something close to freedom. Cleo leaned against the weathered metal of the bleachers, arms crossed loosely, sipping water from a plastic bottle. She stood beside Evelyn, who was texting absently with one hand and scanning the field with the other. Cleo's eyes followed a group of seniors casually throwing a football back and forth, their movements loose and easy with confidence. One of the boys, a lanky kid in a Duskinvale Wolves hoodie, hurled the ball too hard. It spiraled, wobbled in the air, and rocketed toward the sidelines. Toward her, Cleo barely noticed until the whoosh of the ball cutting through air registered in her ears. She turned her head just as it came flying at her face, fast, too fast to dodge. There wasn't even time to flinch, let alone move, but then, smack. A firm, sure hand shot out of nowhere, catching the ball mid-air with a sharp, practiced snap. Inches from her face. So close she felt the wind rush past her cheek. She gasped, stumbling slightly backward. Her water bottle dropped to the ground with a dull thud. "Whoa," came a warm voice, threaded with amusement. "That almost ruined your pretty nose." Robin, tall, athletic, and perpetually tousled, he stood in front of her like he'd just stepped out of a magazine ad for autumn sweaters and varsity sports. Soft brown eyes framed by the kind of lashes that didn't seem fair, curls that never stayed in place, and that easy grin that made girls in the hallway trip over their words. He held the football in one hand like it was nothing, like it weighed less than a feather. His palm flexed slightly as he lowered it, cradling it under his arm with practiced ease. The way he'd moved, the way he'd caught it without thinking, it wasn't just reflex. It was instinct, muscle memory. Like the moment had happened before. Cleo stared at him, her heart pounding like it was trying to climb out of her chest. "Thanks," she managed, breathless. "That would have hurt." "No big deal," he said, shrugging like it hadn't been a minor act of heroism. "I've got quick hands, perks of being a basketballer." Evelyn, beside her, gave a sly nudge to Cleo's arm and smirked, then very pointedly walked away, claiming a sudden thirst and heading toward the water fountain with exaggerated casualness. Her exit felt strategic, like someone slipping off stage to let the scene unfold. Robin scratched the back of his neck, a little awkward now that they were alone. The bravado of the save faded just a touch, replaced by something more vulnerable. "Hey, I've been meaning to talk to you," he said. Cleo tilted her head slightly, curiosity knitting her brows. "Yeah? I like you," he said, and the words came out raw, unfiltered. There was no build-up, no practice speech. Just that, honest, direct. "You're cool and funny, and I dunno. You make chemistry class actually fun to sit through, and I was wondering if maybe you'd want to hang out sometime? Just us." Cleo blinked, taken off guard. For a heartbeat, she wasn't sure she'd heard him right. Robin, Duskinvale High's basketball golden boy, everyone's favorite, liked her? Not just as lab partners or classmates or hallway friends, but like that? He looked nervous now. Not the kind of nervous that came from fear of rejection, but the kind that came from hoping, really hoping, that what he felt wasn't one-sided. His gaze held hers, steady and earnest. Her stomach did a small, giddy backflip. She hadn't expected that. Not today, not this way. But she couldn't deny there'd been moments. Glances across classrooms, shared laughs during experiments, the way he always waited for her after class even when he didn't have to. Nothing flashy, nothing fake, just steady. She glanced over at Evelyn, who was definitely not drinking from the fountain and definitely watching from behind it. Cleo turned back to Robin, her expression softening. "Maybe," she said, allowing the smile to spread slowly across her lips, "if it includes you catching things before they smash my face again." He laughed, genuine and light, the kind of laugh that lit up his whole face. "Deal." The bell rang then, sharp and final, sending waves of students scrambling to grab bags and head back inside. But for a moment, the sound felt distant, unimportant. Cleo bent down to pick up her water bottle, brushing dried grass from the cap, and straightened up to find Robin still there, waiting, that grin still tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Walk you to class?" he asked, as naturally as if they'd always done this. She hesitated, then nodded. Sure. As they walked off together, shoulder to shoulder, Evelyn shot her a triumphant look. Cleo rolled her eyes playfully in return, but couldn't help the quiet warmth blooming in her chest. It wasn't just the way he caught the ball. It was the way he'd noticed, the way he'd acted without thinking, the way he saw her, really saw her, and maybe, just maybe, she was ready to be seen. Chapter 3. Cherry soda and cold stares. It was a rainy, damp weekend morning in Duskinvale, the kind of morning that seemed woven from mist and whispers. The clouds hung low, brooding and heavy, swollen with unspoken secrets. The wind that curled through the narrow streets didn't just chill the skin, it hummed warnings in the language of storms. Evelyn Harper stirred beneath her quilt, cocooned in warmth. Her room, dimly lit by the gray light outside, felt insulated from the outside world. Yet there was a strange tightness in her chest, a weight in the air that settled into her bones. It wasn't fear exactly. It was a sense, a shift. Like her breath knew something before her brain did. She sat up slowly, her heart thudding a little too fast. Her room, with its soft pastel walls and shelves filled with storybooks and music boxes collected since she was a child, looked exactly the same. The lavender candle still glowed faintly from her dresser, releasing a thin ribbon of scent into the cool air. Yet, something in the world outside her window had changed. Padding downstairs barefoot, she rubbed her arms against the chill that clung to the old wooden staircase. Each step creaked beneath her weight, as if the house itself was wary. In the kitchen, a plate of scrambled eggs and avocado toast waited patiently on the island, steam curling upward like a ghost. A note lay beside it. Had to leave early. Urgent call. Be safe. Eat your breakfast. Dad. She sighed, smoothing her fingers over the familiar handwriting. Sheriff Harper never elaborated in his notes. Always short. Always calm. Always hiding something. She nibbled half-heartedly at the toast, eyes flicking to the window where rain tapped against the glass. The world outside looked like a washed-out painting, muted grays and blues blurring into one another. Still, she felt the need to move, to shake the strange tension threading through her limbs. So she pulled on a hoodie, tied her sneakers, and stepped out into the morning. Duskinvale was quiet. Unnaturally so. The streets were slick and glistening, and Evelyn jogged past manicured lawns and empty porches. There was no sign of Mrs. Benjamin tending to her roses. No grunts of exertion from shirtless Dr. Phil and his perfect mower lines. Even the birds seemed absent, gone silent or hiding from something that had no name. She ran until the park came into view, its swing sets swaying slightly in the breeze. By the time she finished her loop, her limbs were damp and chilled. The stillness had set her nerves on edge. The shower at home felt like sanctuary, steam rising in clouds as she let the hot water wash away the tension. She changed into a soft pink knit outfit, pulled her hair into a messy bun, and collapsed onto her bed with a long exhale. Her fingers reached for her phone on instinct. It buzzed. Cleo, "Hey," Evelyn answered, grateful for the sound of her best friend's voice. "I feel like a dead tomato," Cleo groaned theatrically. "You're not dying." "Well, not dying, just feverish and emotionally weak. Come see me? Bring love. And cherry soda." Evelyn laughed. "I'll be there soon." She reached for her coat but paused. A sound upstairs, soft, almost a whisper, made her freeze. It was faint. A creak, a drawer sliding shut. She moved carefully, footsteps light on the stairs as she approached her father's study. The door was half open, and inside the room was in disarray. Papers scattered across the desk, the window cracked, rain dripping slowly onto the sill. And there, atop the mess, a thick, leather-bound book. The cover was embossed and worn. She opened it with hesitant fingers. Inside, sketches of wolves, clan trees, names circled and underlined. Notes scribbled in her father's blocky handwriting. Alpha bloodline, Duskinvale clans, Blackthorn descendants, the treaty. Her hands trembled. She didn't know what it meant, but she knew it was important. Too important to ignore. She slid the book back into the drawer, realigned the papers, and backed out of the room, her mind racing. The air felt heavier now. Like something was watching. She pulled her hoodie tighter and set out toward Jack's corner store. It was a short walk, and the rhythm of her steps helped quiet the storm of thoughts swirling in her head. The rain had softened into a silvery drizzle. Duskinvale shimmered under it like a dream frozen in time. When she stepped into Jack's, the old fluorescent lights buzzed as always. The scent of aged linoleum and penny candy clung to the air. She gave a small wave. "Hi, George." The cashier, a college kid with a soft spot for regulars, looked up and smiled. "Hi, Evelyn. Cherry soda today? You know me." She wandered to the back of the store, where the coolers hummed steadily. Her fingers brushed a can of soda, and that's when she felt it. A presence. She turned slowly. Her breath caught. A man stood on the opposite side of the aisle, half shrouded by shadows cast from the overhead lights. Tall and lean, His leather jacket clung to him like a second skin. His damp hair curled slightly at the ends. His eyes, icy blue and piercing, locked on hers like he'd been waiting for her. Next to him stood a beautiful girl, regal, raven-haired, her expression sharp as glass and twice as cold. Her gaze sliced through Evelyn like she didn't belong there. Evelyn's pulse surged. She fumbled with the soda can, paid in a daze, and muttered a quick goodbye to George. She could feel their eyes on her all the way to the door. The drizzle had thickened into rain again as she walked to Cleo's mansion, nestled in its grand cul-de-sac like a manor from a storybook. Warm light glowed through the windows. The scent of rain on old stone filled her nose. Veronica Flynn opened the door with her usual grace. Her auburn hair was pinned elegantly, her eyes soft with concern. "Evelyn, darling, you look like you've seen a ghost." "Just the weather," Evelyn murmured, managing a smile as she handed over the sodas. "You're too kind," Veronica said warmly. "I've got a casserole in the oven if you're hungry." "I'll grab a bite in a minute," Evelyn said. "Let me check on the patient." Veronica chuckled and called after her, "Tell her to rest. Book club's still happening." Cleo leapt up the second she heard Evelyn's footsteps. "My savior!" she cried, flinging her arms around her. "You don't look sick," Evelyn said, eyebrows raised. "I was, emotionally. Sure." Cleo's room was palatial, filled with lush velvet, glinting accessories, and rows of designer everything. It smelled faintly of peonies and secrets. "So what's the real plan?" Evelyn asked. "I'm skipping the book club because Robin is going to the arcade," Cleo said. "You, however, are going in my place." "Cleo, nope. You're doing this for love, mine. Obviously." Minutes later, Evelyn was glammed up in a powder blue cardigan, her hair in soft curls, and a faint shimmer on her cheeks. She barely recognized herself. Cleo beamed behind her as they stood in front of the ornate mirror. "You look like the main character," she whispered. "Go slay." Downstairs, Veronica gave her daughter a knowing glance. "Your cough's gone." "Miracles happen," Cleo replied with a grin. "You're a good sport," Veronica said as she smiled and looked at Evelyn all dolled up. Veronica sighed, handed Evelyn her purse, and kissed Cleo's forehead. "Take care of yourself, dear, and try the casserole." They walked toward the garage filled with sleek cars and chose Veronica's SUV for the short drive. They drove through the dripping hills and winding roads until they reached the Duskinvale Country Club, a grand ivy-clad estate wrapped in opulence. Inside, women in pearls and glossy heels murmured over china cups. Books lay scattered across tables like relics of a quieter time. Near the hearth stood a woman Evelyn hadn't seen before. Tall, elegant, pale. She introduced herself as Fiona, author of the group's new read. She was poised, her voice like smooth wine, her dark curls swept back. But what caught Evelyn was the resemblance. Fiona looked like the man she'd seen at Jack's corner store. The same intensity, the same chill. Evelyn sipped her tea, nodded at the right moments, and listened. But her thoughts spiraled elsewhere. To the book in her father's drawer, to the word alpha, to the man's eyes, and to the growing certainty that the world she knew was about to shatter. Chapter 4. Moonlight Echoes. The country club's golden chandeliers sparkled like starlight over velvet carpets, casting a soft, glimmering sheen across the crowd of well-dressed women clustered around linen-covered tables. China cups clinked gently. Laughter rang out in restrained, practiced notes. But Evelyn Harper couldn't take her eyes off the woman seated at the front of the room, Fiona. She sat poised, with the grace of someone born under a silver moon. Her voice, rich, calm and commanding, floated across the room like music from another time. She was discussing her newly published book, The Moon Goddess and Her Fates, her tone poised and confident as she spoke of myth and magic, of fate and forbidden love, and, most notably, of supernaturals. At first, Evelyn had thought it was just another mystical metaphor. But Fiona's eyes told a different story, sharp, knowing. Her glances across the room would occasionally, almost unconsciously, rest on Evelyn. Not in a threatening way, but as if she were watching something sacred unfold. Evelyn shifted in her seat, tension crackling just under her skin. She turned slightly toward Veronica, who was scribbling notes with the enthusiasm of a woman on her third espresso. Veronica. Who is Fiona, really? She looks so familiar. Veronica beamed. Fiona? She's from one of Duskinvale's oldest families, a lineage rooted deep in the town's soil, very prestigious. Her ancestors were the founders of the township, I think. She paused with a dreamy look in her eyes. She's always been elegant and mysterious, a true Duskinvale icon. But neither of them knew the full truth. Fiona wasn't just some enigmatic literary star. She was the Luna of the Blackthorn Pack, the ruling werewolf clan in Duskinvale. And her only son Jacob, the same enigmatic alpha heir Evelyn had encountered earlier at Jack's corner store, was her bloodline's future. As Fiona's voice wove spellbinding tales, Evelyn's mind wandered. She imagined wolves under moonlight, bloodlines etched into the land, the drawings and notes in her father's secret book, and the man from the store's stare, cold, electric, magnetic. When the event finally ended, and the audience dissolved into polite claps and admiring chatter, Veronica darted off to congratulate a friend. Evelyn stood awkwardly near a potted fern, unsure if she should stay or vanish into the rain. Then Fiona approached. She moved like someone who had danced with the stars. Her heels clicked softly on the polished wood floor, but her presence hit like thunder. "Evelyn," Fiona said, her voice gentle, lyrical. "You've grown beautifully." Evelyn blinked, her lips parted. "I'm sorry, do I know you? Do you know me?" Fiona gave a sad, knowing smile. "I was a close friend of your mother, Maya." Her voice softened, almost breaking. "Actually, we were very close." Evelyn's world shifted. Her heart stammered. Mom? But no one ever really talks about her." Fiona nodded slowly. "She was special, so much more than people realized. What happened to her was a tragedy. My dad never spoke of her origins. Or how she died," Evelyn whispered, the words dragging out from some hidden well inside her. Fiona's eyes darkened with an emotion Evelyn couldn't name. Grief, maybe. Guilt. Reverence. "Some truths are heavy, Evelyn, but you're not alone in your curiosity." She reached into her coat and handed over a sleek black card, its lettering etched in silver. "Whenever you need someone to talk to, come visit me. My estate is in the western woods, just past the edge of the river bend." Before Evelyn could respond, Veronica reappeared beside her, her cheeks flushed from laughter. "Fiona, thank you again. You were amazing as always." Fiona inclined her head gracefully, her eyes lingering on Evelyn one last time. Then she turned, her silhouette blending into the evening light as she disappeared through the crowd. Her heels tapped like punctuation marks at the end of a sentence Evelyn didn't yet understand. The drive back was quiet. Veronica hummed softly to an old ballad on the radio as the SUV carved through misty roads. The hills of Duskinvale rose and fell like waves, trees whispering secrets through the fog. Evelyn stared out the window, Fiona's words and her mother's shadowy past circling her mind like ravens. She remembered fragments, a warm laugh, a lullaby sung on stormy nights, the scent of rain and rosemary, but then, silence, absence. A father who never spoke of the past. When they pulled into Evelyn's driveway, night had settled firmly across Duskinvale. The mist had thickened into a soft curtain, and the air held a peculiar energy, like the breath of something ancient had stirred. "Thanks for coming with me," Veronica said kindly. "It meant a lot. Say hi to John for me." Evelyn nodded, clutching Fiona's card tightly in her coat pocket. As Veronica turned on the SUV and took a short turn, and before Evelyn could go another step, everything went dark. And something, deep inside her, in a place older than memory, awakened. A question with no words, a howl that hadn't yet formed, and the first true echo of moonlight across her soul. Chapter 5. The fog that never lifted. Morning came heavy with dread. Duskinvale was shrouded in a dense fog, as if the town itself was mourning. The clouds, thick and unmoving, turned the world into a pale gray canvas. Street lamps glowed like dying embers against the mist, and the sound of birdsong was swallowed in silence. It was the kind of morning that felt like a prelude to something irreversible. Evelyn stirred in her pajama on her bed. The sheets tangled around her limbs. Her head pounded with a dull, pulsing ache, as if something inside her had tried to claw its way out during the night. She groaned and sat up slowly, pressing the heels of her palms into her eyes. That's when she saw it. A bruise. Dark, angry, and painful, stretching along her hand and forearm, like something had slashed and scratched her, or like she'd fought her way out of something. It throbbed faintly, not just with pain but with memory, or the absence of it. Her heart stuttered. What happened last night, and how did she get such a bruise? The last thing she remembered was Veronica's soft goodbye as she stepped out of the SUV after the book review with Fiona. But everything after that was a void. No memory of unlocking the door. No recollection of changing clothes or going to bed. Just darkness. She reached for her phone on the nightstand and nearly dropped it. 23 missed calls. From Cleo. From Mayor Augustus. Her stomach dropped. Her fingers shook as she unlocked the screen. Then, bang! Her bedroom door flung open with a force that rattled the windows. Evelyn shot upright, adrenaline igniting in her chest. Cleo? She croaked, stunned. Cleo stood in the doorway, her eyes red and puffy, her lips trembling, her face streaked with silent tears. Her arms hung limply at her sides, fingers curled into fists like she didn't know what else to do with them. She looked like someone who had aged years overnight. Without a word, she rushed to Evelyn's bed and collapsed into her arms. Sobs erupted from her chest, raw and unfiltered. "Cleo, what's wrong?" Evelyn whispered, wrapping her arms around her friend instinctively. But Cleo only cried harder, her entire body shaking. Evelyn blinked back her own tears, the bruise on her arm burning beneath her sleeve. She pulled the fabric down to cover it. It wasn't the time. Finally, in a breathless whisper between hiccup sobs, Cleo said, "Mom, she didn't come home last night. I called you like 1,000 times and you didn't pick up." Evelyn froze. "What? She's missing. Her phone's off. We waited all night. Dad's been calling every hour. He even drove her usual route 8 times. Evelyn felt the ground sway beneath her. "Oh my God. Cleo, I'm so sorry." The words felt hollow, insufficient, but they were all she had. She clutched Cleo tighter, both of them trembling in shared fear. Eventually, they descended the stairs together. The house felt different, thick with silence and shadows, the air too still. But from the kitchen came the low murmur of voices. Mayor Augustus stood by the counter, his sleek blonde hair neatly combed, dressed not in his usual tailored suit, but in jeans and a pullover. He looked older than Evelyn remembered, shoulders slumped, eyes bloodshot. The lines on his face seemed deeper somehow. He was speaking in hushed tones with John, whose usual calm demeanor had cracked. His brow was furrowed, and he rubbed his hands together as if trying to warm himself from the inside. They both turned when they saw the girls. Evelyn didn't hesitate. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around Augustus, tears finally breaking free. If I had known she wasn't going to make it home, I would have begged her to stay," she said, her voice breaking. "I didn't even know something was wrong until just now." Cleo joined them, slipping her arms around both of them from behind. The three of them stood there, a fragile cocoon of grief and desperation, held together by love and fear. John looked away, his jaw clenched. "We searched all night," he said quietly. "There's no sign of her car, and no one's heard from her since she left the club. It's like she vanished into the mist." Augustus sighed, the sound heavy and brittle. "This isn't just about Veronica anymore. Something's happening in Duskinvale. First those strange reports in the woods. Now this. We need to act fast. We're organizing a search party," John added, his eyes locking onto Evelyn's. "We won't stop until we find her." Evelyn nodded, but her mind was miles away. There was a whisper, curling at the edges of her thoughts, a bruise she couldn't explain, a night she couldn't remember, and an ache deep in her bones, like something ancient had stirred during the night and had not gone back to sleep. She touched the card in her coat pocket. Fiona's card. Black with silver ink. Was this connected? She didn't know. But as the fog outside thickened, curling through the trees like something alive, Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that what had happened to Veronica was only the beginning. Chapter 6. Into the Fog. John's voice broke through the quiet like thunder. "We don't have time to sit around. Get ready. You're joining the search party." The words hit the room like a spark thrown onto dry leaves. Evelyn, still wrapped in a cocoon of disbelief, blinked at him. The early morning chill seeped through the window panes, clinging to her skin. Her eyes were swollen from the restless night, and her mind was a fog of worry and fear. Cleo looked up from the dining table, her tear-streaked cheeks glistening in the weak morning light that barely filtered through the fog-drenched windows. Her fingers trembled around the edge of her cocoa mug, which had long since gone cold. John stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the grayness beyond. He had a flashlight tucked under one arm and a worn backpack slung over the other. His face was drawn and pale, the lines around his eyes deeper than usual. He looked like he hadn't slept, but his voice was firm, unyielding. He was trying to be the anchor, for them, for Augustus, for Duskinvale. "Mayor Augustus is rallying the townsfolk," he continued. "We need every able hand in Duskinvale out there, no exceptions." Evelyn hesitated for only a moment. Her gaze slid toward Cleo, who wiped at her face with the back of her hand, swallowed hard, and gave a shaky nod. Upstairs, the two girls moved without word, their silence heavy but not empty. They pulled on layers of warm clothes, heavy jackets, woolen sweaters, thick socks. Evelyn double-laced her boots, her hands moving automatically. Cleo checked her flashlight 3 times, unscrewing the bottom and testing the batteries with a flick. They packed small backpacks with essentials, flashlights, batteries, snacks, whistles, bottled water, a compass that neither of them really knew how to use. Suddenly, Cleo's phone began to buzz. "Robin." Cleo grabbed it and pressed it to her ear, her voice trembling as she answered. She managed only a few words before breaking into fresh sobs. Evelyn rushed to her side, wrapping her arms around her. Robin's voice, though distant through the speaker, was calm and reassuring. He promised he'd help find her mother. He promised they wouldn't stop until they did. Outside, Duskinvale had transformed into something almost unrecognizable. The town square, usually sleepy and sun-dappled, was now wrapped in an eerie silence. The thick fog rolled in heavy curtains through the streets, turning familiar landmarks into shapeless shadows. Streetlights flickered, casting brief pools of amber light before retreating into gloom. Flyers with Veronica Flynn's face fluttered in the cold breeze, plastered on shop windows, nailed to tree trunks, and pinned to telephone poles. Her smile, warm and radiant, stared out at the town like a silent plea. Mayor Augustus stood at the center of it all. Despite the exhaustion written across his face, he stood tall. His voice carried through the mist as he directed the search parties, sending them into the woods, toward the river bend, along the ravines. His eyes, though bloodshot, held the steady resolve of someone who had organized a search before. Evelyn and Cleo joined one of the search clusters near the edge of the Duskinvale woods. Robin, arriving moments later, approached quickly, flashlight and gear in hand. Cleo rushed into his arms, her relief palpable. He whispered something into her hair, and she nodded, steadier now. The forest loomed before them, dark and dense, its edges blurred by the creeping fog. The trees, twisted and bare, seemed to lean in toward them. It had always been a place of childhood dares and ghost stories, but now it felt alive, like something ancient had awakened and was watching. They pressed in. Boots crunched on the underbrush. Evelyn's flashlight beam danced between branches and tangled roots. Cleo's whistle clinked softly against her jacket zipper. Every noise was amplified. The snap of twigs beneath their feet, the distant hoot of an owl, the sharp bark of a dog echoing somewhere beyond sight. But there was no sign of Veronica. No tire tracks, no footprints, no broken branches or clues. It was like she had simply ceased to exist. Evelyn walked beside Cleo, white-knuckled fingers gripping her flashlight. Her thoughts drifted, not just to Veronica, but to herself. The unexplained bruise beneath her sleeve still throbbed faintly. There was a sense that something had happened to her recently, something strange, something that couldn't be explained by logic or coincidence. Fiona's voice echoed in her mind. Then, suddenly, Cleo was gone. The fog had thickened. Evelyn's outstretched hand no longer touched her shoulder. She spun around. Cleo? Nothing. Cleo. Only silence. Even the wind had stopped. Panic surged in her chest. Evelyn turned in a slow, desperate circle. Her flashlight sliced through the mist but revealed only trees, twisted, gnarled limbs clawing toward the sky. Shadows danced where her light faltered. She took a step forward, then another. The forest pressed in around her. A sound, low, a growl, not human. She froze, breath catching. Her flashlight trembled in her grip, and then it stepped from the trees. A wolf. No, not just a wolf. A massive creature, silver-gray fur rippling like liquid moonlight. It was larger than any wolf she'd seen in books or films. Its body was lean and muscular, built for speed and strength. It stood on 4 legs but carried a presence that felt almost human. Its eyes, a glacial blue, glowed with an intelligence ancient and strange. It didn't snarl, didn't charge, it stared. And Evelyn stared back. She couldn't breathe, couldn't look away. The wolf blinked once. Then, without a sound, it turned and walked deeper into the woods. Confused, heart-hammering, Evelyn stood frozen. Had it spared her? Had it led her somewhere? Something deep within her pulsed, a thrum in her blood. Instinct or madness, she didn't know, but she followed. Branches scraped her coat, roots tangled at her boots. The fog parted as if making way. The wolf's silver trail shimmered faintly in the mist, like starlight on snow. She didn't need her flashlight anymore. The air thickened, the trees leaned in. She wasn't afraid, not of the dark, not of the wolf. It wasn't leading her to danger. It was guiding her to truth, to something long buried, to something waiting. Veronica's disappearance was not random. It was not a mistake. And the bruise on Evelyn's arm? It wasn't just a wound. It was a message, a sign. Something ancient had stirred in Duskinvale, and Evelyn Harper was walking straight into its heart. Chapter 7. The Dream That Was Memory. The massively large silver-gray wolf moved with silent purpose, its paws sinking softly into the damp earth, yet making no sound. Each step it took was deliberate, almost reverent, as though it wasn't simply navigating a forest trail but walking through a story forgotten by time. The mist curled around its legs like threads of memory, rising in wisps that seemed to whisper secrets in the chill night air. Evelyn followed, her limbs heavy but her heart pulled forward by something she couldn't name. This wasn't courage. It was deeper, older. Something primal unfurled within her, a connection humming beneath her skin, a thread tying her to this wolf, to this moment, to a truth buried far beyond reason. The deeper they went into the woods, the thicker the air became. Fog twisted through the trees like pale fingers reaching for warmth. It clung to the branches, veiling the moon and muffling sound, until the forest was a cathedral of shadows and silence. The scent of wet moss, pine, and something faintly metallic thickened with each step. Evelyn's breath misted in front of her, her fingers cold, but the chill no longer mattered. Her senses had sharpened, her focus singular. The questions burning inside her were louder than fear. Then the forest broke open. The trail led to the edge of Duskinvale's largest lake, still and black under the low-hanging mist. The silver-gray wolf stopped and sat with regal stillness. There it was. Veronica's SUV. Parked just off the gravel path, it sat like an abandoned monument. The vehicle's windows were fogged, its silver frame damp with dew. No tire marks, no footprints. Not even the broken press of grass, as if it had materialized there rather than arrived by road. Evelyn stopped in her tracks. Her pulse surged, her breath caught in her throat. Her mouth opened but no words came. The SUV looked untouched, preserved in time. The wolf turned its head toward her, its luminous blue eyes locked with hers, intelligent, solemn, knowing. Not a hint of threat in its gaze, only recognition. A heartbeat passed, then it turned and bolted, vanishing into the forest as silently as it had come, like a ghost dismissed by dawn. "Thank you," Evelyn whispered, her voice breaking with emotion. Her fingers found the whistle hanging around her neck. She lifted it to her lips and blew. The sharp, shrill note sliced through the muffled stillness. Minutes later, the forest stirred. Flashlights bobbed in the mist like fireflies. Sheriff Harper's voice barked orders through the trees. Mayor Augustus arrived, panting and pale, flanked by deputies. Cleo burst into the clearing, eyes wild, Robin close behind her. When they saw the SUV, a heavy silence descended. The fog thickened with dread. Cleo broke first. She sprinted to the vehicle, fingers fumbling at the locked doors. "Mom! Mom!" she cried, voice ragged. She pounded the windows, panic twisting her features. "She's not in there," Evelyn said softly, stepping behind her. Her arms wrapped around Cleo, anchoring her. Her voice trembled, but her hold was steady. "But we'll find her. I promise." Robin lingered nearby, helpless sorrow on his face. From that night on, Evelyn stayed with the Flynns, not just for Cleo, but because something inside her had shifted. After what she'd seen, what she felt, she couldn't be alone. Weeks passed like fog slipping through fingers. Duskinvale changed. Curfews were issued. Shops closed early. School canceled classes indefinitely. More people vanished, without pattern, without reason. A grocery clerk, a teacher, a farmer. No blood, no signs of struggle. Just gone. Fear soaked the town like rain in soil. People spoke of the woods only in whispers. Even during daylight, the trails were abandoned. Doors were bolted, candles burned through the night. One stormy evening, thunder groaned like something restless. Evelyn twisted in bed, trapped in a feverish sleep. And then, she dreamed, only it wasn't a dream. She stood on the gravel path in front of her house. Veronica's SUV idled nearby, its red taillights glowing dim through the fog. Evelyn had just stepped out, keys in hand, when she dropped them. The air sparked with tension. A foul smell, putrid like decay, hit her nose. A shift in the wind, a pressure in her chest. The SUV braked hard. From the fog stepped a figure, tall, cloaked in darkness. It stood utterly still before the vehicle, unmoving, unreal. Evelyn turned, instinct roaring. Her entire being screamed to protect Veronica. Then, pain exploded through her body. She collapsed, screaming. Bones cracked, twisted. Her hands became paws. Her spine lengthened. Fur erupted from her skin. Her senses exploded. She could hear the blood in the figure's veins, smell the iron in its breath. She was shifting into the wolf. But her body wasn't ready. Her soul was. With a guttural snarl, she leapt at the figure. It wasn't human. It was a vampire. Its sunken red eyes glinted in the fog, its claws gleaming like obsidian. They clashed violently. Evelyn attacked with raw instinct, lunging. But the vampire kept dodging. He was fast, blindingly fast. When he got tired, it slashed her forearm. The bruise, the wound. Pain, so much pain. Venom laced into her bloodstream. Her limbs faltered. Her vision blurred. She staggered. The vampire loomed, ready to strike the final blow. But then, a loud, guttural growl. The massive silver-gray wolf that she saw earlier during the search, the one who guided her to Veronica's missing SUV, crashed into the vampire with earth-shaking force. They fought, claws raking, teeth snapping. Evelyn, barely conscious, writhed in the dirt, the venom burning through her veins like fire. She cried out. The wolf heard her. His fury grew. He howled, a sound so deep it shook the fog itself. From the forest came more wolves, dozens, large, silent, surrounding the scene. The vampire snarled but backed away. He was outnumbered. He looked once more at Evelyn, weak, shifting, bleeding, then disappeared into the shadows. Veronica fainted in the SUV after witnessing everything, her head against the wheel. Evelyn caught movement in the trees, a figure of a woman, Fiona, watching. She slipped away as men emerged, quiet, strong, practiced. They moved to the SUV and gently carried Veronica away. Then the silver-gray wolf shifted. He became a man. The man from the grocery store, the one with the quiet strength and sharp, icy blue gaze. Evelyn started shifting into her human form. Naked and trembling, he instantly glared at the pack with instinct, and all of them averted their eyes from her. He moved to Evelyn, now collapsed in her human form, cold and shivering. He wrapped her in a fur blanket, his hands warm, his voice a whisper. He carried her in his strong, muscular arms. She hesitated, but he still took her. He went towards the path of the door and picked the keys she had dropped before the fight had started and opened the door. He moved as if he had known the house for years and headed straight to her room. He opened the bathroom door and kept her beside the bathtub. He turned on the hot water, filled the bathtub, and added some shower gel, removed a vial of silvery antidote to the venom the vampire struck her with, and poured a sufficient amount in the hot water. Then he came back to her and knelt before her. As she shivered from the pain of the venom, he brushed back a strand of hair from her face and kissed her forehead protectively. "I'll never let anyone harm you again. Never." With those words, he scooped her off the floor and lowered her gently in the tub. At first she groaned in pain. The warmth soothed her. And later on she relaxed, still half-conscious. He bathed her gently with reverence, cleansing the bruise carefully and adding more of the antidote. She wasn't comfortable at first, but gave in because of the pull towards him. He washed her hair and rinsed it off with rose water and lavender oil. After that, he picked her up and wrapped a towel around her and placed her gently on the bed. By then, the poison had started fading, and she was feeling better with less groans. He emptied the tub and picked up some pajamas from the closet and dressed her neatly, braided her hair, and tucked her into bed. His eyes never left her, not once, as he watched her sleep. As she drifted into unconsciousness, he watched her with something like love and sorrow. Suddenly she heard the sounds of her alarm blaring. Evelyn gasped awake. Back in the Flynn mansion, drenched in sweat, chest heaving, Cleo stirred beside her but didn't wake. Evelyn stared at the ceiling, heart thundering. That hadn't been a dream. It was a memory. The night Veronica vanished, Evelyn had shifted, for the first time, and now she knew something else. Something had followed them from the woods, something ancient, something hungry, and it was far from done. Chapter 8. Shadows and Revelations. Evelyn couldn't bring herself to tell Cleo about the dream, not because she didn't trust her, but because she wasn't even sure it was a dream. The memory still clung to her bones, vivid and too detailed to dismiss, but too strange to believe. Her bruised arm, the wolf, the vampire, the man with icy blue eyes. It all swirled in her mind like smoke she couldn't grasp. The bruises had started to fade, but the weight of the vision remained as if her soul had been marked in some unseen way. That morning, while making breakfast for Mayor Augustus, thoughts drifted again. The sound of sizzling eggs faded into the background as she remembered the book in her father's study, cryptic findings about the supernaturals of Duskinvale. It felt like a key to everything that had begun to unravel around her. "Evelyn?" Cleo's voice snapped her back to reality. She had dozed off, the spatula mid-air, the eggs starting to crisp too much on the edges. "Oh, sorry," Evelyn chuckled, brushing off her daze. "I was just lost in thought." Cleo didn't push. She looked hollow, as though her own grief had drained the light from her skin. After eating their breakfast in silence, Evelyn plated Augustus's food on the large kitchen island, eggs, toast, and black coffee, always the same, then turned to Cleo with newfound resolve. "Let's go to my place today," she said gently. "You could use a change of scenery, nap a little. I'll make you something warm." Cleo nodded, silent but willing. Her eyes flickered with a fragile gratitude. The two girls packed lightly and made their way across Duskinvale to Evelyn's house. The streets were unusually quiet, as if the whole town was watching from behind drawn curtains. The wind carried whispers through the trees. It was strange returning to a place that once felt so familiar, now dim with tension and quiet dread. Before they entered the house, she glanced at the path to the door and had a flash of the memory again, but had to dismiss it. She brought out her keys and opened the door. Her dad wasn't home. Probably at the sheriff's office, buried in files and trying to make sense of the town's vanishing residents. The air inside the house was stale with silence. the kind that filled the space after too many unanswered questions. The house was untidy because John had been working day and night. "Go upstairs and rest a bit," Evelyn told Cleo. "I'll take care of things down here." Cleo trudged up the stairs without a word. Evelyn tidied the living room, swept the kitchen, did the laundry, and made a warm pot of stew for her father. She stocked the fridge with dishes that could be microwaved, busying herself to quiet the hum of her thought. But it didn't help. She lingered in the silence, the weight of curiosity pressing on her chest. Her eyes drifted toward the door at the end of the upstairs hallway, the door to her father's study. She'd never spent much time there. It had always been a private, almost sacred space, but now it felt like the one place where answers might still live. Opening the door, the scent of aged paper and dust filled her nose. The desk was a chaos of notes, maps, and red-string crime scene sketches. Amid the mess, a framed photograph caught her eye, her mother, Maya, smiling softly. The ache in her heart grew sharp. Her fingers trembled as she reached for the frame. Behind it, tucked carelessly among the papers, she found them. Documents on vampires, werewolves, shapeshifters. Creatures of lore compiled with care and obsession. As if her father had been preparing for something for years. And then her breath caught. A photo, a family portrait. Fiona stood at the center, holding a young boy. His blue eyes unmistakable. He was the same man from her dream, the same one she had seen at Jack's corner store that morning. Standing beside Fiona was a tall, broad-shouldered man with silver-gray hair, and on the other side, her mother, Maya. "What is this?" Evelyn whispered, shaking. She yanked open a second drawer and retrieved the supernatural research book and the photo, stuffing both into her bag with frantic hands. Returning to the kitchen, she stood frozen, her heart pounding with questions and no answers. Then a strange chill swept over her. She smelled something, foul, putrid, like decay, the odor of rot, just like she had that night. "Cleo," she whispered and raced upstairs, her heart beat loud in her ears. She burst through the door to her room and froze. There it was, a tall, shadowed figure, its skin pale and hollow, leaned over the sleeping Cleo with a wicked smirk curled across its lips. Another vampire. Its eyes glinted red in the dim light. "No!" Evelyn screamed, the word ripped from her lungs. Waking Cleo up, the figure snarled and vanished out the window in a blur of shadow, disappearing into the evening air. Cleo bolted upright in a panic, eyes wide, breath gasping. "Run!" Evelyn shouted, grabbing her friend. She snatched her bag, the book and photo still tucked inside, and the two sprinted down the stairs, bursting through the front door into the cloudy dusk. They didn't stop running until they reached the Flynn mansion, collapsing on the porch in a heap of breathless gasps and panic. And then something rare happened. Cleo laughed, really laughed. It wasn't loud or long, but it was real. It cracked through the tension like sunlight after a storm. "I thought you were dragging me out to clean your house for John," Cleo said between breaths, giggling. Evelyn smiled, her chest still heaving. She pulled Cleo into a tight hug. "Turns out we needed each other more than I thought." They stayed like that for a long moment, the wind rustling the trees around them. Then they stood and went inside, locking the door behind them. Duskinvale was no longer just the sleepy little town they thought it was. Something ancient was waking up in the woods, and both girls were beginning to understand the storm wasn't just outside. It had always been inside them, and the only way to stop it might be hidden in Evelyn's bloodline. Chapter 9. The Truth Beneath the Rain. The Flynn mansion stood eerily quiet as the girls stepped inside. The warmth of safety quickly gave way to an uncomfortable stillness. Mayor Augustus wasn't home. The usual scent of his aftershave and the crinkle of fresh newspapers was absent, replaced by the cold scent of rain seeping through the old windows and the soft creak of the wooden floorboards beneath their feet. Thunder murmured somewhere in the distance, distant but drawing closer. "I'm calling my dad," Evelyn said, pulling out her phone. Her fingers trembled slightly, the ghost of fear clinging to her skin like the humidity in the air. She pressed the dial with urgency, her breath caught in her throat. Sheriff John Harper answered on the second ring. Evelyn? Dad, she said quickly, panic lacing her words. Something happened. At our house. There was someone, a vampire, in my room, watching Cleo. There was a pause. Silence on the line so dense she thought the call had dropped. Then finally, I'll be there tonight. Don't let anyone in. Lock the doors. Evelyn hung up and turned to Cleo, who looked pale, dazed, as if her spirit were halfway between reality and nightmare. They climbed the stairs without speaking, each step a drumbeat in the quiet house. The rain began to tap harder against the windows, a steady rhythm of dread. In Cleo's room, soft pink lights glowed like distant embers. Evelyn shut the door behind them, grounding herself on the edge of the bed. She pulled the worn, leather-bound book and the old family photo from her bag, handing them to Cleo without a word. "What's this?" Cleo asked, flipping the photo in her hand. "That's my mom." "Maya," Evelyn said softly, and beside her, "That's Fiona, the man with silver-gray hair. I think that's Fiona's husband. And the boy, he's all grown up now. I even dreamt about him, although it might not have been a dream but a memory. I saw him once at Jack's supermarket. Cleo, he's real. My dream was particularly weird. A lot happened, Cleo. I'm still finding it hard to believe if it was a dream or not. Why didn't you tell me you had a strange dream about a guy? I thought we told each other everything as best friends," Cleo said, pouting. "I'm sorry, Cleo. I thought it'll be crazy, with all that's going on about Veronica and stuff," Evelyn replied, looking sorry. Cleo sat down slowly, studying the photo. "But your dad never told you about any of this?" Evelyn shook her head. "No. But this book," she held it up, the spine cracked and etched with faded gold lettering, "was in my dad's study. He knew. He's been researching them for years now." Cleo exhaled shakily. "So, that thing in your room, it really was a vampire?" "Yes. He probably came for something," Evelyn said, the thought chilling her more than the rain outside. "And I think Fiona and her men took your mom. Maybe Veronica saw something she wasn't supposed to. Or maybe—" Her voice faltered, the words like thorns in her throat. She saw too much. The room fell into a pensive silence. Outside, the sky darkened, thunder rumbled, and rain cascaded down the windows in silver rivulets. The whole of Duskinvale seemed to hold its breath. Hours passed. The girls stayed close, drawn together by uncertainty and fear. Then headlights swept across the driveway. The familiar low growl of John's sheriff cruiser pierced the stillness. Evelyn rushed downstairs, Cleo a step behind her. Sheriff Harper entered, rain dripping from his coat, his face set in hard lines of exhaustion and concern. He looked like a man who had run out of time. "Girls," he said, his voice low, "lock the door behind me. Augustus isn't coming home tonight." The three gathered in the living room. The fireplace crackled softly, casting shadows on the walls, making old family portraits twitch with flickering light. "We need to talk," Evelyn said, her voice steady despite the storm raging in her chest. "All of it. I need the truth." She told him about the dream, and the incident with the vampire. He let out a breath and sat heavily in an armchair. "I was hoping to wait until you were older, but it looks like the world made that choice for me." He looked at Evelyn, really looked, and saw her mother in her eyes. Then he began. "Your mother, Maya, wasn't just my wife," he said slowly. "She was born into a bloodline of protectors called the Duskwatch Sentinels, guardians of balance between humans and supernaturals in Duskinvale. Descendants of an ancient race of shapeshifters who made a pact with royal vampires long ago in a realm called Sintra." Evelyn sat motionless, heart-hammering. "When supernaturals discovered humans in Sintra," John continued, "they had to create a law that protected all three species. Vampires started feeding on humans, and it nearly wiped humanity out. The moon goddess's descendants blessed werewolves with the ability to ward off vampires and protect humans. The Duskwatch Sentinels led the effort to enforce peace." He paused, swallowing. "But the Scarlet Dynasty, a powerful vampire sect, rose in rebellion. They waged war against the Sentinels. Because they liked human blood, it was a bloody, brutal time. The Sentinels won, but barely. The Scarlet Dynasty only agreed to surrender if humans were never allowed to mix with supernaturals. It became law, and peace returned, for a while. Evelyn's voice cracked as she asked, "What does this have to do with me?" John's eyes softened. "Your mother, Maya, she broke the law. She fell in love with a human. Me. We had you, Evelyn. A child born of both humans and werewolf shifters. A miracle. But it put you in danger. We used protection spells to hide you. But they've begun to wear off." His voice caught. "Maya didn't die. She left. To protect you. Her presence would have drawn attention. She's one of the last living descendants of the Duskwatch Sentinels, and you're her kin next in line. That explains why they appear whenever you're near." Evelyn's heart dropped, her world tilting. The dreams, the visions. They were memories. "You didn't just dream, Evelyn," John said. "You remembered a fragment of your memory your body wanted you to forget because of the spell. Something dark is rising. The Scarlet Dynasty has sensed your presence. They're waking up. They're hunting. Because your mother mixed her blood with humans and you're the living symbol of the broken law. But I love you and would protect you till the day that I die." Evelyn got up, sat beside him, and hugged him with her eyes glistening with tears. It was too much to take in. Her life has been normal, just like any other teenager, but what John just said was a lot for her. Cleo's voice cracked. "I'm sorry, Evelyn, and I do hope this supernatural mystery gets sorted out, but where is my mother and why take her when she's not even a threat?" John's face darkened. "Because Veronica saw Evelyn shift that night. And Fiona. She's not your enemy. But she's trying to remind you of your origins. That explains why she wrote that book, and fate eventually brought you to the book club. They took Veronica away to protect her and themselves from the Scarlet Dynasty." Outside, the storm lashed against the windows. Evelyn whispered, "What now?" John looked at both of them, his daughter, and Cleo, the girl who had become like family. "Now, you both need to be ready. The Scarlet Dynasty is back. Duskinvale is not safe anymore. Duskwatch Sentinels will rise. And you, Evelyn, you're not just Maya's daughter. You're her legacy." And as the fireplace hissed and the wind howled through the trees, the storm outside finally had its answer. It would not be the last. War was coming to Duskinvale, and it was to protect a broken law. Chapter 10. Secrets in the Mansion. The rain falling was heavy. The Flynn's mansion was warm, the kind of warmth that makes your bones sigh in relief. John Harper had already fallen asleep because of a lot of stress lately. Cleo wrapped the knitted blanket tighter around her shoulders, her feet tucked beneath her. Evelyn was in the kitchen, stirring the hot cocoa on the stove, her thoughts caught between memories and emotions too big for her chest. Once the mugs were steaming, Evelyn sat beside Cleo on the grand ouch, their knees brushing, the fire of the hearth crackling in front of them. "I didn't tell you everything a while ago," Evelyn began softly. Her fingers grazed her upper arm, where a faint purplish mark was fading beneath her skin. She pulled up her sleeve and showed Cleo the almost healed bruise. "This is what I got that night, when your mom dropped me off after the book club." Cleo's eyes widened. "Wait, Mom? What happened?" Evelyn nodded. "It was right after we waved goodbye. She was reversing when he appeared. A vampire, just standing there, like a nightmare carved out of shadow, with a foul, putrid smell like decay. Your mom froze, and something in me, it snapped. I wanted to protect her, Cleo. I needed to." She looked down, breath catching. "My bones started cracking and reforming. Pain washed through me, and I shifted into a wolf and lunged at the creature in front of her car. It just happened. No control, no thought, just instinct." Cleo blinked, stunned. "You shapeshifted?" Evelyn nodded. "I tried to fight him, but I wasn't strong enough. I barely scratched him. He got pissed and knocked me back. That's when I got this. It was venomous." She touched the bruise gently. "I thought I was going to pass out. I was shifting back, bleeding. And then..." She paused, her voice going soft. "The guy from Jack's came, in a wolf form. He's the same wolf who guided me to your mom's car during the search. To give you a sense of relief, that Veronica could be found even though she was with them. Cleo's breath hitched. You had a real-life Cinderella savior moment, a faint smile curling Evelyn's lips. He came as a wolf, huge, silver-gray like moonlight. He fought the vampire off. He called his pack, I think. His growl was like thunder. He saved me. Cleo leaned in, wide-eyed. He carried me. I was barely conscious, naked, bloodied. He instantly asked his men to look away. He didn't hesitate. He took me into the house and he bathed me. Cleo's jaw dropped. Wait, he what? Evelyn's cheeks flushed pink. She laughed, hiding her face behind her cocoa. I know. I tried to protest. I was mortified. But he didn't treat me like that. He was gentle, like I was something precious. He cleaned the blood off me, ran a hot bath with antidote in it, and after, he washed my hair with lavender oil and rose water. His hands were so careful. Cleo blinked in disbelief, then burst into a grin. Oh my God. That's the most romantic thing I've ever heard. Were you like, in love? I don't know him, Cleo. I only met him once in Jack's corner store with some people and a girl who glared at me, Evelyn whispered, her eyes far away. But there was a pull, like gravity. I wanted to pull away, but I couldn't. It wasn't just physical, it was something in my blood, like I'd always known him. Cleo leaned closer. And what did he say? Evelyn smiled softly. I'll never let anyone harm you. That's what he said. And he meant it. They were quiet for a beat. The rain had softened outside, turning to a light patter against the roof. The fire cracked and hissed like it was gossiping too. But the fact that my mum is still alive baffles me. I'm not sure if I should be happy or not. Cheer up, princess. We're both motherless now, Cleo said. Then Cleo smirked, lifting her mug. So, naked bath scene, your mother still alive, a protective wolf prince, and ancient bloodlines. Are you sure this isn't just your fantasy? Evelyn laughed, a full, warm sound. Wish it was just a fantasy, they both giggled, cheeks pink from blushing, sipping their cocoa like kids at a sleepover. But under the laughter was something stronger. A bond sealed by truth, danger, and something just beginning to bloom. Outside, Duskinvale may have been caught between legends and war, but in that moment, there was only warmth, trust, and a story still unfolding. Chapter 11. Shadows of Sintra in Duskinvale. The rain had softened to a drizzle by morning, leaving behind a glistening veil of dew and silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that waits, tense, alert, holding its breath. Duskinvale felt different. Charged. As if the land itself had inhaled and held that breath, listening, watching. The wind barely moved the trees, and even the birdsong seemed hesitant, cautious. Something ancient had stirred. Something old and restless, buried beneath the town's roots and histories. Most of its people remained fast asleep, blissfully unaware of the ancient force awakening beneath their feet. In the great room of the Flynn mansion, Evelyn stirred on the couch, the scent of old wood smoke and leather filling her senses. Her father's jacket was wrapped tightly around her shoulders, still carrying his scent, a strange mix of cedar, ash, and resolve. Across from her, Cleo lay curled up, the worn family photo still clasped in her hand like a relic. The fire in the hearth had burned low through the night, now reduced to glowing embers that pulsed faintly in the dimness, like the heartbeat of the house itself. Evelyn's dreams had been different this time, not fragmented, not a cascade of shadows and whispers. These were memories, real and vivid. She had seen her mother, Maya, standing beneath a vast moonlit sky. Her hair danced in the wind like silk banners. She had whispered to a younger Evelyn, her voice echoing with quiet strength, "You are the dawn, Evelyn. You are the light in the dusk." Evelyn sat upright slowly, her heart racing, her mind buzzing with questions and meaning. The words echoed through her like a distant drumbeat, stirring something deep within her soul. A soft rustling broke the silence. Cleo shifted and rose, stretching her arms before moving toward the tall window at the far end of the room. Her silhouette was framed by the pale morning light seeping through the glass. She stood still, gaze fixed outside. "They're watching us," she whispered, not turning around. Evelyn blinked. Who? She asked, her voice hoarse. I don't know, Cleo said finally, turning to face her. But when I woke up, I felt it. Like eyes in the trees. Not human, not animal either, just watching. Before Evelyn could respond, the heavy sound of boots echoed in the hallway. Sheriff John Harper stepped into the room, clad in black tactical gear, his face lined with determination. His presence felt like a blade drawn from its sheath. He tightened the laces of his boots, his movements brisk. You're coming with me, he said to Evelyn, his tone leaving no room for argument. Cleo blinked awake. Wait, what? Where are you going? I've contacted someone, John said, pulling a worn envelope from inside his coat. A woman named Helena, Maya's closest ally, one of the last of the Duskwatch sentinels still alive. Evelyn's heart leapt. She's alive? She's been in hiding, John said, nodding. Deep in the red pine forest east of town. She'll train you. If the Scarlet Dynasty is returning, you'll need more than instinct. You'll need your birthright. Cleo's eyebrows rose. You're taking Evelyn into the woods to meet someone who fights vampires? She's not going alone, John replied, his eyes narrowing. Jacob is waiting. He'll come too. Evelyn looked puzzled. Jacob? Who's Jacob? John's eyes softened only slightly. He's Fiona's son, the man in your dreams, your protector. Evelyn rolled her eyes, though her cheeks flushed. Of course, a protector. Why is it always someone saving me? John stepped closer. He was assigned to watch over you before you even knew who you were and knew he existed. His bond to you runs deeper than duty. It's ancient. And he's bound to you by fate. By a vow made long ago between the wolves and the sentinels. Before Evelyn could process that, a distant rumble filled the air. The sound of a low engine. Cleo moved toward the window and peered out, eyes wide. A sleek black motorcycle pulled into the driveway, cutting clean lines through the mist. The rider dismounted in one fluid motion. He was tall, dressed in a dark leather jacket, and his tousled hair curled over his forehead. His icy blue eyes locked onto Evelyn's through the glass like magnets drawn to each other. John opened the door, and Cleo instinctively ducked behind Evelyn, giggling. He's hot, she whispered under her breath. No wonder you acted shy when he was bathing you, half-conscious. Evelyn shot her a look, trying not to blush. She failed. Jacob stepped into the room with quiet confidence, nodding at John first. Then he turned to Evelyn. It's nice to see you again, he said, extending his hand. Nice to see you too, Evelyn replied, avoiding his gaze as she took his hand. Jacob turned to Cleo. And you must be Cleo, judging by the close proximity. Yeah, but where's my mom? She asked quickly. She's safe, Miss Flynn. Just not ready for the outside world, Jacob answered gently. John stepped in. It's time to go. He took Evelyn's hand, squeezing it briefly. Trust him. They left just after sunrise, the cruiser gliding through misty fields that looked like paintings left out in the rain. They drove past the old Duskinvale cemetery, through iron gates hidden behind a line of weeping willows, then down a narrow trail nearly swallowed by the forest. The red pine forest greeted them with eerie majesty. Its trees were ancient, their bark marked with time and symbols, roots twisted beneath their feet, thick and knotted like buried serpents. The air grew colder as they walked deeper. Jacob led the way, silent and sure-footed. His icy blue eyes shimmered faintly, attuned to the woods in a way that was more than human. How did you know where to find her? Evelyn asked, stepping over a fallen log. I didn't, Jacob said. The forest told me. Cleo snorted. Of course it did. Very wolf-fairy of you. Jacob chuckled. Your sarcasm is a shield. It's bulletproof, she muttered. Eventually the forest parted just enough to reveal a hidden glade. An ancient cottage appeared, nestled in vines and moss, like a secret whispered by the earth itself. Willow branches veiled the entrance. Smoke curled from the crooked chimney. Jacob motioned for silence. John stepped forward and knocked 3 times in a rhythmic pattern. A pause. Then the door creaked open. An elderly woman appeared, her posture upright, her presence undeniable. She looked to be in her 70s, her silver hair braided down her back. Her copper-toned skin shimmered with a subtle sheen, and her eyes, sharp, luminous, seemed to look through time. She wore a cloak embroidered with symbols, and in her hand she held a staff carved from moonwood. Her eyes landed on Evelyn and did not waver. "You are Maya's child," she whispered. "I'm Evelyn," she said. "Are you Helena?" "I am," the woman said. "And you are the future." She stepped aside, beckoning them in. The inside of the cottage was alive with mystery. Walls lined with glowing glyphs, shelves crowded with ancient texts, bundles of herbs hanging from the rafters. A fox lay curled by the hearth, its fur like flame, eyes half-lidded. "I am Sentinel Helena," she said, offering them seats. "I was Maya's mentor, her shadow in the old wars." Evelyn swallowed. "Please, can you tell me more? About what I am? About the Duskwatch?" Helena studied her carefully. Then she spoke. "You are of dual blood, the first in centuries. Your mother carried the ancient mark of the Sentinels. Your father, a human protector. But you are more. You carry the potential to become what the old world feared, a bridge." "A bridge?" Cleo asked, confused. Helena nodded. "A being of both realms, capable of unbinding the ancient laws. You are the hidden prophecy. The Scarlet Dynasty has sensed it. That is why they hunt you." She moved to a locked cabinet and retrieved a scroll. When she unrolled it, the room seemed to lean closer. A celestial map filled the parchment. Blood moons, sigils, and a girl with arms outstretched. Behind her, a wolf, a raven, and a serpent. "They'll come for you during the Crimson Alignment," Helena said. "In 13 nights, when the veil between worlds is weakest." Evelyn's voice trembled. "What do I have to do?" "Survive," Helena said, "and lead. The Duskwatch must rise again. Their bloodlines sleep, scattered and forgotten. You must awaken them. They will follow you." She looked toward Jacob, the wolf, the greatest alpha to be in the history of Sintra. Evelyn glanced at him, admiration flickering across her face. John stepped forward. "You'll have allies. Duskinvale will be with you," John said, looking at Evelyn, who's already feeling overwhelmed. Cleo raised her hand nervously. "What about me? I mean, I'm not part of this, right?" Helena smiled gently. "You are exactly where you need to be. You see clearly through veils others miss. You were chosen to, not by blood, but by destiny. You are the raven born from Ravenclaw." "Wow," Cleo said, surprised. "So I'm supernatural," she said, kinda happy about it. Outside, the forest stirred. Something ancient had taken notice. A raven landed on the windowsill. It spoke, not with a voice, but with knowing eyes. They were being watched. Helena moved to the window and whispered an incantation. The shadows receded for now. Evelyn's heart pounded. She stood slowly, hands clenched at her sides. "I'm ready," she said, "to fight, to lead, to find my mother." Helena nodded. "Then we begin. Before the moon turns red, you will learn who you are." The wind howled again, but this time it wasn't a warning. It was a call to arms. That night, training begins. Inside, the cottage was lined with ancient relics, weapons, scrolls, glowing stones. Helena wasted no time. As rain returned outside, she tossed Evelyn a dagger with a handle made of bone. "Catch it," she said. Evelyn flinched and caught it by the blade. She hissed as it sliced her palm. Jacob flinched, obviously concerned for her. "First lesson," Helena said. "Pain is a reminder you're alive. Never fear it. Use it." Hours passed. Evelyn trained, Helena relentless in her methods. She taught Evelyn how to hear with her blood, sense shifts in air, speak the ancient tongue of Sintra. Meanwhile, Cleo studied the leather-bound book. It whispered to her, actual voices, some familiar. Her own mother's voice murmured her name. Cleo was changing too. As fire crackled and Evelyn collapsed after another round of training, Jacob knelt beside her. "You're stronger than you know," he said softly. She looked at him, vulnerable. "Why are you really here?" He hesitated, brushing her hair from her face. "Because when I saw you in the visions, I knew. I was meant to protect you. Not because of the law, but because my soul already recognized yours." Cleo, watching from the doorway, smiled faintly, then froze. A symbol was glowing on her wrist. The same one in the book. Helena turned to her sharply. You are not just her friend, are you?" Cleo's voice trembled. "I don't know what I am anymore." Helena's voice dropped to a whisper. "Then it's time we find out, because this war was never just about the Scarlet Dynasty. It never was." Chapter 12. Beneath Duskinvale, the Awakening of Lord Marquis Morvain. Far beneath the sleepy town of Duskinvale, hidden beneath the oldest roots of the forest, lay an ancient cave sealed for centuries by blood spells and sacred rites. No human foot had stepped within for over 1,000 years. The air was thick with the scent of iron, and the stone walls pulsed faintly with ancient, forbidden magic. Deep in the heart of the cavern, in a sarcophagus carved from obsidian and veined with crimson runes, he slept. Lord Marquis Morvain, the first of his kind, born before memory, before sunlight touched the world. A vampire of such ancient power that the ground itself bent to his will. The silence shattered. A piercing chant filled the air. Red-robed figures from the Scarlet Dynasty stood in a perfect circle, their eyes glowing like dying embers. They had risked everything to come here, but their time had come. The world above was shifting. Magic was awakening, balance threatened. They needed him. As the final syllables of their incantation echoed off the stone, the lid of the sarcophagus cracked. Boom! A shockwave rippled outward, dust exploded, the walls trembled, and then he rose. Lord Morvain sat upright, his skin pale as moonlight, his eyes like black fire. Long silver hair tumbled down his back, and his lips curved in a frown of ancient irritation. "What year is it?" His voice rumbled like thunder, low and ageless. "Year of blood eclipse," the lead dynasty priest said. "You have been summoned, my lord. A threat rises above us. Sintra has developed and divided into several towns. A girl, born of both human and wolf blood, a creature neither mortal nor cursed, an abomination." The moment the words left the priest's mouth, everything changed. Morvain's expression twisted into pure rage. He stood, towering and terrible, and as his feet touched the cave floor, the earth itself groaned. "An abomination?" he thundered, his voice echoing through the cave and up through the ground of Duskinvale. "You dare wake me for this insult to bloodline purity?" His roar exploded like a sonic quake. Above, the town of Duskinvale shook violently. Windows shattered, street lamps flickered, trees bowed, birds took to the skies in a frenzy. Evelyn, Jacob, and Cleo all felt it. A chill raced down their spines and in their chests, a pressure like an invisible hand squeezing their ribs. Below, the red-robed vampires fell to their knees. "She must be destroyed," one dared to whisper. "No," Morvain growled, his fangs gleaming. "She must suffer." A cruel smile spread across his face. "I want her broken before she dies. I want her wolf to turn on her human heart to betray her, and her soul to burn beneath my gaze." He raised a single hand, and the blood runes across the cave walls ignited. "I am Lord Marquis Morvain. The world shall remember fear." And with that, the shadows gathered around him, thick and hungry. The Scarlet Dynasty had brought back their king, and Duskinvale would never be the same again. The forest held its breath. They were no longer just teenagers caught in a town of secrets. They were part of an ancient war, and with Morvain awakened, the clock had started ticking. To be continued. If you enjoyed this audiobook, subscribe to my channel for the second book of this audiobook and more interesting audiobooks like this. Save the audiobook playlist for more upcoming audiobooks. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Check out new audiobooks in my channel. Do you think Evelyn and her friends can defeat Morvain? And also, do you think Maya would come back to guide her daughter? Comment your answers in the comments section. Thanks for listening.